Hey guys, it's History Behind the Warrior and welcome to another Mortal Kombat video. Now in today's history of breakdown and analysis, it's going to be a big and crammed episode, as today we're going to be talking about the Titans, the Elder Gods, as well as the One Being. So we're going to be covering all the big significant deities that lie within the Mortal Kombat universe. I am excluding gods as they are typically playable in-game and thus do deserve their own video in time. So in saying that, we do have a lot to talk about and cover today. And on top of this, I will be talking about all the alterations these deities have undergone from the original continuity to the current continuity. So without any further ado, let's get right on to it. Now for us to talk about these mystical entities within the Mortal Kombat universe, we first must go all the way to the very beginning of existence and time itself. Before this, there was presumably nothing except the void, but from the emptiness of space, the fabric of reality would give birth to the Elder Gods, as well as the ravenous one known as the One Being. Now not much is really known about the One Being itself, only that it was born alongside the Elder Gods at the beginning of creation, and it was at the very top of the food chain, which naturally put him in the crosshairs of the Elder Gods. You see, the One Being needed to consume Elder Gods in order to survive, so understandably the Elder Gods could not have this. So the Elder Gods would forge 6 different Kamidogu amulets that would separate his mental consciousness, and the fragments of his body that were pulled apart would eventually lead to the different realms we've come to know in the Mortal Kombat universe. So yes, the One Being is most definitely real, and the realms themselves are the physical body of the One Being. Now although he was defeated, it didn't exactly spell the end of him, as you see upon his loss to the Elder God, his body would in fact bring forth life amongst the realms, ones of true beauty and ones of pure anarchy. Either way, the fall of this quote-unquote god brought forth an entire world made up of multiple races, and without anyone to govern them, this could quickly fall into chaos. So this is where the Elder Gods do step in. Now they did see this way of maintaining control of the One Being's unconscious body, as well as a great opportunity to see how this world would flourish. Now of the realms being on different planes of reality, the Elder Gods would finally create other gods in order to protect those realms, with one of those examples of course being Raiden. Now by asserting these individuals to look after the realms, it would allow each of them to flourish, but despite this amazing opportunity, this sentiment wasn't felt by everyone, more specifically one Elder God by the name of Shinnok. Now Shinnok himself was a confrontational individual amongst his brothers and sisters, doing whatever he wished regardless of the people he may harm, and seeing the threat that the humans posed, Shinnok would wage a massive battle against the realms, wanting to kill off all forms of sentient life in order to somewhat remove this plague left over by the One Being. Now this battle was ferocious, as it tore through the ranks of gods and eventually spilled into the realms of mortals, killing and injuring many. One of the biggest casualties of this battle was in fact the Zartarans, whose realms and homes were scorched beyond repair, leaving them barren of a true home. Now eventually Shinnok would be defeated, and as punishment for his crimes he would be confined within the Netherrealm for eternity, being guarded by none other than the realm's protector, Lucifer. Now as centuries passed by, life amongst the realms continued to flourish, and the races amongst each of them became more and more ambitious, creating homes, tapping into magic, and eventually creating civilization. But much like Shinnok, this mindset wasn't felt by everyone, as an emperor by the name of Shao Kahn had risen to power in Outworld and had the desire and belief to merge all of the realms of his own. He would basically become a god, if not so surpass the Elder Gods. Now despite being aware of the situation, the Elder Gods decided to not interfere, as they believed by doing so it may in fact accidentally wake up the One Being. So they would create a contingency plan, that being the Mortal Kombat tournament. If someone could win 10 consecutive tournaments, they could merge any realm with their own, a feat that they most likely believed was nearly impossible. But this is Shao Kahn we're talking about here. Nothing is impossible, as the Emperor took on Edenia, defeated them in 10 consecutive Mortal Kombat tournaments, and burnt that realm to the ground before merging it with his own. Now one thing that the Elder Gods was somewhat unaware of at the time is that although the One Being himself may not physically be alive, his mental consciousness lives on, wanting individuals from across the realms to create havoc and chaos in the hopes of having them succumb to his influence. By doing so, they could merge the realms together, and they could be a somewhat catalyst for his return, with Shao Kahn being a prime victim of this. Now from this point onwards, the Elder Gods do play a somewhat passive role, not necessarily being involved in Mortal Kombat 1, 2 or 3. They make their first proper appearance in the 4th game, as you see after Shao Kahn's invasion of Earthrealm had failed, the fallen Elder God Shinnok was able to return, springing another massive attack across the realms and of course being freed from his shackles in the Netherrealm. Now, although the Elder Gods themselves didn't directly get involved, they personally reached out to Raiden and his Earthrealm defenders to seek out and defeat the fallen Elder God, a mission of which they were successful in. Now, as a form of gratitude towards Raiden, they would in fact give him Elder God status and also allow Fujin to become the new protector of Earthrealm. But peace wouldn't at all last long, and eventually it would get to the point where the Elder Gods were forced to finally raise their hand. You see, in the 5th game, Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance, a powerful partnership was put together by Quan Chi and Shang Tsung, and together they reigned anarchy across the realm, seemingly killing the likes of both Shao Kahn and Liu Kang. By removing these two powerful figures from the realm of mortal, it made their conquest that much easier. Now, despite the tyranny that the pair made, the Elder Gods themselves did not decide to step in, which means that Raiden was forced to sit idly by for the most part. It was only up until he relinquished his position to which then he could take on the Deadly Alliance. Now, despite Raiden's interference and the Earthrealm defenders putting up a valiant battle, the Deadly Alliance proved to be far too much, and everyone was slain in this battle, with even Raiden falling at the hands of the two sorcerers. But it's here where the shock really began, as the Dragon King Onaga had resurfaced. Believed to have been dead for millennia, the return of Onaga was truly a sign that the end times were coming. And you see, whilst all this conflict was going on, with Shao Kahn invading Earthrealm, Shinnok waging war against everything that existed, and Quan Chi and Shang Tsung wanting to harvest the souls of everyone, they were all completely oblivious to Onaga and the old man he deceived, Shigenko, who in fact assembled all of the Kami Dogus for him. Now, because of this, Onaga was in a position of supreme power, having resurrected the Earthrealm defenders under his control and the Kami Dogus at his fingertips so he could merge the realms together. He was on the verge of winning and becoming the one being. So when the Elder Gods realized what was at hand, they finally decided that they couldn't sit idly by, and thus recruited an individual to become their champion, and it would be none other than Hanzo Hasashi. Now, they were well aware about what had happened to Hanzo, and thus told him that if he was successful in destroying Onaga, then they would resurrect his family. So Hanzo would travel out to kill Onaga. Now, during the climax of Deception, it wasn't in fact Hanzo that dealt the final blow, but in fact the duo of Shigenko and Nightwolf, who was able to trap Onaga in the Netherrealm. Now, because of Scorpion's somewhat failure, the Elder Gods would in fact bring back Hanzo's family, but as some form of sick joke, they would bring them back as revenants, and thus Hanzo swore vengeance against them. Now we finally come on to Mortal Kombat Armageddon, the end of the original timeline, of which the two children of destiny, that being Taven and Dagon, were supposed to enter the Battle of Armageddon, defeat the fire god Elemental Blaze, and bring peace across the realms. However, this didn't quite turn out the way anyone expected. Despite the conquest mode insinuating that Taven had won, we see at the very beginning of MK9 that this is not true. Shao Kahn was the true victor of the Battle of Armageddon, and once he obtained the power of Blaze, he was able to merge the realms together, becoming the true catalyst for the One Being and bringing on the end days. But before we can see the fall of reality and the Elder Gods, Raiden's able to send a message to his past self, and thus the universe is rebooted. Now, with MK9 being a clear reboot of the entire series as a whole, there are in fact some slight changes and alterations to the universe, with the Elder Gods and One Being being affected, as well as the incorporation of a new deity in the series, that being the Titans. So now let's quickly go back again to the beginning of time and talk about how this was all for. Now, though we don't entirely know the details on this, we know that before the Void existed, there was Kronika, and Kronika is a Titan, one of many different cosmic deities that have the ability to manipulate the fabrics of reality. Unlike the gods or the Elder Gods, who are traditionally elementals, it seems like the range of Titan's powers go beyond that, most likely being able to manipulate life and death itself, because in Noob Saibot's ending in MK11, after defeating Kronika and absorbing her power, he becomes the physical embodiment of death, and ideas like this are seemingly implemented into other characters' endings, but show they obtain a great deal of power that can affect and control reality. So Kronika is one of these individuals through and through, being the keeper of the hourglass and the Titan of time. So it is believed that she was there at the very start of the universe. She was the one to create the Elder Gods and presumably the One Being, although that itself is not entirely confirmed. Now, amongst the Elder Gods that were there, two were in fact her children, that being Cetrion and Shinnok, and after giving birth to these two individuals, Kronika seemingly faded from existence, allowing for the universe to somewhat carry out like the original continuity. There was only one change here in the battle between the Elder Gods and the One Being, and that is the Kami Dogus, as the Kami Dogus themselves are in fact daggers in this timeline and continuity. Now, although the daggers themselves aren't integral to the main games, they are used a lot in the Mortal Kombat X comic book run, and thus after the Kami Dogus are tainted by the One Being's blood, they all do become tied to ancient blood magic. So that's a fun little fact if you haven't been paying attention to the MKX comic book run. Now, during the events of MK9, the Elder Gods themselves do play an extremely passive role, not really wanting to be involved with Earthrealm's invasion, despite Shao Kahn's ruthless nature. Now, it is typically believed that by attacking a realm, you are breaking the rules of Mortal Kombat. However, it's not attacking the realms themselves, but in fact merging it, a mistake that Shao Kahn made, to which the Elder Gods would step in and assist Raiden in destroying Shao Kahn. So for the most part, they are extremely passive in MK9, but as this is going on, Kronika is watching on the sidelines, as she has been observing Raiden and his alterations to the original continuity and how it's not going to her plan, as Kronika herself wishes for the realms to fall into the hands of her children. Now, despite this, Kronika does once again remain absent for MKX. Now, much like that of the original continuity, Shinnok brings a massive attack across the realms, but predominantly focuses on attacking Earthrealm, as Earthrealm's life force, the Jinsei Chamber, contains a large amount of energy that he wishes to absorb. By doing so, he can become a powerful deity and take down the other Elder Gods. However, on both attempts, Shinnok is defeated and fails in his mission. Now, by the end of MKX, Shinnok is successful in corrupting the Jinsei Chamber, of which Raiden is forced to cleanse, and does undergo the Dark Raiden persona, and this seemingly is the last straw for Kronika, as she sees there being a huge imbalance between good and evil in the universe. Alterations and changes have occurred that she didn't see and is understandably unhappy about. So after seeing the vegetative state that Shinnok was in, Kronika finally decides to step in, wanting to create a new world and new era, which is in her vision, and wishes to completely remove Raiden from the timeline. But in order to do so, she needs incredibly strong sources of power to do so, and with the universe now somewhat barren of quote-unquote evil, it forces Kronika's hand to merge two different timelines together in order to call upon allies that otherwise would have been dead. For example, Shao Kahn. Now, though she herself is able to remove Dark Raiden from the timeline, by merging the timelines together, she does bring forth the MK9 incarnation of the character. So Raiden isn't completely removed from the timeline just yet. Now, due to such a powerful deity surfacing, the Elder Gods are understandably rather surprised, although they themselves once again decide to play a passive role, only giving advice to Raiden instead of them deciding to step in, and this is ultimately what leads to their downfall, as Setron, who's amongst the Elder Gods, kills all of the other Elder Gods, making herself the only Elder God left alive, as we do see when she confronts Raiden. Now, as the story does progress in 11, Kronika is able to obtain the power she wishes in order to reset the timeline, and is somewhat successful, as Setron does give up her own life to allow Kronika to reset the timeline. But of the merge of Liu Kang and Raiden, the duo proved to be far too much for even a Titan to handle. Even when she brings them to the void and the beginning of time, she isn't strong enough to contend with Liu Kang's sheer skill, and thus she is defeated and killed. So this technically does mark the end of the Elder Gods in the Mortal Kombat universe, as well as the Titan of Time. But this isn't quite the end of it. You see, in multiple different arcade ladder ending, it's always insinuated that there is more than one Titan in the universe. There is far more than what we've seen, and I think we're only scratching the surface of what the Titans are. Now, with the Elder Gods completely gone, and the universe being rebooted, it raises the question of what exactly is going on here with the Elder Gods, and who exactly is going to step up, as Kitana and Liu Kang are now the Forgers of Time, and it was somewhat insinuated in Liu Kang's ending that his friends and allies would become the new Elder Gods. Now again, there's not a lot of validity when it does come to arcade ladder endings, but I think it's at least worth keeping in mind the idea and possibility that this does exist. As for what's going on with the One Being, I'm not entirely sure. See, the power and existence of the One Being has somewhat fallen off since the end of Armageddon. We only really learnt about the One Being during the 3D era of games, with Onaga being a prime catalyst that somewhat led up to that character's reveal, but of course we didn't get anything from it. And thus, with the universe being rebooted, I'm not entirely too sure if they're going to touch on this topic again. At this point, with Titans being included, we've learned that the universe is far bigger than we had expected, and it's actually quite nice to see something that is beyond the Elder Gods play an active role in the universe, because the Elder Gods themselves are very cool in theory, but in execution are too lazy for their own good, and thus as characters aren't given much development. So it's hard for me to enjoy them when they basically do nothing. But yes, that covers everything I did want to talk about today. I hope you have enjoyed this video and learnt more by doing so, as this is a video I've been wanting to talk about for a while, and I figured the best way to actually talk about all of these cosmic individuals is to somewhat cram them all into one video. There's a lot to talk about here, and I figured it'd somewhat be the best way of constructing a story that lets you know the beginning of the universe all the way up to the current end of it, as we are now at the beginning once more, and now have an entire universe where anything is indeed possible. But yes, that is everything I did want to say here. Now, what are your thoughts on the Titans, Elder Gods, and the One Being? Would you be interested in seeing more from any Titans? Who would you have as the Elder Gods? And would you like to see the One Being idea be expanded? Please do comment down below, as I am interested to hear what you all have to say. But yes, that's it. So before this video wraps up, if possible, let's try getting it to about 500 likes, as it's honestly the best way of supporting this channel. And also do not forget to subscribe and to tick that bell, as it will notify you when I do upload a video. But yes, that is everything I did want to say for now. So as always, please comment, like, subscribe, and share this video with everyone you know. Please take care, and I will see you all next time.